There are plenty of fonts nowadays. Some are beautiful, some have that traditional look and feel, and some you should really think before using those. Fonts help people to focus on the reading process or pay attention to a specific line of text. Next.js 13 brought a lot of game-changing features, one of which is how we handle fonts. In this video, we will learn how to install the NextFont package. We will also learn how to add a font to your Next.js site using NextFont in two ways, using the package itself or using a local file. We will also learn different methods of using the package. And finally, we will understand the benefits that the package offers. But now, let's jump into coding. Here I have a Next.js starter, which you can get by running npx create next app. I removed the most boilerplate code because we won't need it. Now we're ready to use the package. To do that, we need to complete 3 steps. First, we need to import the font itself, then we need to configure the font object, and finally, we need to attach our font to the JSX code. So let's do that in the index.js file. First, let's import the font. As our global font, we will use OpenSans, which is a variable font. Now, we're ready to configure the font object. Since this is a variable font, we don't need to add a lot of configuration, we just need to specify the subset. We will go with Latin only. So we type subsets, this will be an array, and we do Latin. And now we need to attach our font to the JSX code. We should attach it to the global node, so all of the children elements can inherit this font. Since we already used the class name prop, we can use the alternative method of attaching the font, which is style. And now to attach the font, we type OpenSans as the name of our variable dot style. Now, if we run the dev server and we refresh the page, we can see that the font has changed. Let's really quickly verify that we're actually using the correct font. We can do that by doing the inspect mode, and we can see that it's actually using OpenSans font, which is the exact font we import from the NextFont package and configured as our global font. Perfect. Now we're ready to create a different component, which will be a header component with a different font to make a more realistic example. For our header component, we will use a different font, and we will also use a different approach, which will be a local file. So let's do it. First, we need to add a local font file to our project. I already have a file pre-saved, so all I need to do is to create a folder, name it fonts, and add our font file to the folder, and we're done. For this demo, we will create a very simple component just to see how fonts actually work. So let's do it. We will create a folder, name it components, and create a new file, which is called header.js file. I will import the code, and I will also create some styles to make it a bit different from our global font. Now let's add our component to the page so we can actually see 2 different fonts at the same time. So we go to the index page, and now we can import it. And actually display it. And as you can see now, we're still using our global font because we still don't use our local font in our header component. So let's do that. To work with local fonts, we'd use the local font import. Now, the same way as with Google Fonts, we need to configure the object. So we can create a variable, name it myFont, and use our import to pass the file. To do that, we use the src prop. And we use the name or our font. And now, the same way as we did before, we need to attach our font to the JSX code. Since we already used the class name prop, we will use the style prop once again. So we type style, my font dot style. And as we can see, now we have a different font for our header. Because of the higher specificity, our local font is overriding our global font for a specific component. Now we're ready to try something different. We can inject our global font directly to the head of the HTML document. Also, we will use CSS variables for that. Let's start by removing a global font from the page level. To do that, we need to remove the import itself, we need to remove the configuration object, and we need to detach our font from the JSX code. That's it. Now we need to complete 4 steps to set our global font on the app.js level. First, we need to import the font. Next, we need to configure the font object, but with one additional option. Next, we need to attach our variable to the global JSX node. And finally, we need to use the variable in other files to see it in action. So let's actually do that. First, we need to import the font. Now we need to do the same configuration process we did previously. We create a variable. We use our import. We specify subsets. And now we also add a variable. This will be a string and we can call it font open sans. Now we need to attach our variable to the global JSX node, which is div in this example. We use class name prop. We use our variable. And we use the variable itself. Now we have a variable attached to the global JSX node. On our index page, I already have a class name which I can use. So let's go to the CSS file, and in our main class, I will use our CSS variable which we declared on the app.js level. We'll type font family var, and we'll use the name of our variable, which is font open sans. As you can see, the font has changed, and if we will inspect, we can see that we actually use our CSS variable and the font that we expect to be used. And there we have it. We use Next Font package to work with Google Fonts, local fonts, variable fonts specifically, so specifying things like font weight was optional for us, and in addition to that, we used the CSS variable approach. If you like this video, consider giving us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tell us which approach do you prefer the most. Also, go check out this video, but for now, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.